Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stress-Free IEP, the show where we help families build their village to raise their neurodivergent children with confidence and support. I'm your host, Frances Schefter, special education attorney, advocate, and fellow parent walking this journey with you. Each week, we shine light on professionals, resources, and real-world strategies that can empower you to navigate the IEP process and beyond. Whether you're tuning in live on Facebook or YouTube or listening later on your favorite podcast app, we're so glad you're here. Please feel free to ask questions live or in the comment section later. We promise to respond. Let's dive in and meet today's amazing guest. Jennifer Joseph is the founder of Reading, Writing, Resumé, where she provides tutoring, editing, and resume writing services. She has over 20 years of experience helping students and adults build the skills they need to succeed academically, including those with ADHD, dyslexia, autism spectrum disorder, and executive functioning challenges. Jennifer works with middle and high school students on reading comprehension, writing, organization, time management, and study skills. She teaches the English and reading sections of SAT, ACT, and HSPT, and helps high school students brainstorm, write, and polish their college essays. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Joyous to be here this
Yeah.
afternoon.
So happy to have you. So it's a lot you do, the reading and writing and resume.
I
So
do.
yeah. How did you get started? Like, where did this?
I mean, I graduated University of Maryland with a liberal arts degree, as an English lit major. So I had to make it. That statement. I am a fill in the blank. I am a liberal arts major. I had to make it. And what did
Right.
I love doing all those years? Reading, writing, and editing. And I've worked in associations and in IT and now education for over 20 years. And the commonality is reading and writing. And I've done it on all my jobs, in one form or another. And so, okay, I fell into tutoring in 99, volunteering for a Montgomery County service. And I loved it. And I've been a substitute teacher in Montgomery County. I've taught SAT classes, and I was like, hey, I could start a business with this. It's all about the written word. So it looks like a lot of things, but it's not actually a lot of things.
Right.
It's all
Well, I
about
love
words.
that. Yeah, but I love that you focus on the writing process because that is such a key point that gets missed often. Like I've seen it in IEP meetings and stuff, and it's like
Yes.
they're like, well, they can't write, but have they ever been taught the actual process of writing?
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, high school students, I have seen more high school students that I could count where they go, I just sit down and I start writing. Or one student said to me, and I like nearly fell out of my chair. She says, I write the thesis statement after I write the essay. I make the thesis statement fit the essay. And I was like, wait, hold on. Just hold on. That's wrong. You're scaring me. Like, you know, because outlining for some high school students, it's a bad word. I don't say that word. I say pre-writing plan. You
Right.
need an outline. You need a pre-writing plan. You need to think about what you're going to write. So, teacher tells I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's one paragraph or 5 pages. Is it a college essay? You really have to outline. But you have to do a brain dump. Get all the ideas out of your head, type it, write it on paper or whatever your bag is. And you have to make a plan. Okay, you get it out of your head and then you organize your thoughts. You'll remove some, you'll add some, you'll switch up the order, and then break it down by paragraph, right? So you have 4 main ideas and it's a 2-page paper. You got 4 body paragraphs and an opening and a closing. You have to, because you're going to be working on this over a week or longer. And if you specifically brainstorm and outline your ideas, you can pick this up 3 days from now. And it's easy to pick it up again. I mean, and the entire process, it's like you can't just say, well, I've outlined, I'm good. Okay. Well, And whether you have to write the whole thing, it's a one pager in one day, or you're going to break it up, this outline makes it easy to do that. And the editing is equally important, because when students don't edit well,
Yep.
no. There's so many,
Right?
and as an English lit major, there are so many things that have to be consistent. Verb tense. You got to uppercase the important things. You can't start too many sentences with a dependent sentence with a dependent clause. And for goodness sakes, sentences should not run longer than 4 lines unless you're a scientist. My husband's
Right.
sentences can run 6 lines long, but
But that's because
there's
the
a lot.
words are bigger. Right?
There's a lot to write. And so if your sentence is 3 or 4 lines long, read it out loud, and then they go, oh, it goes on for too long. Put a comma or a period or something in there.
Yeah.
And and this is a big one that I always tell students. When you're writing, once you've used a word 4 or 5 times, use a thesaurus. Find a synonym.
Right.
And so along with the process of writing, I've created some documents that I'm happy to share, some editing tips and some to-dos and to-don'ts for writing. But the process of writing, once students start outlining of a form, and format doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Because it's just for you. I mean, if the teacher gives you a graphic organizer, fill it in the way you have to. But if you're creating your own, it just has to work for you. You don't need Roman numerals. They got students go, I have to do it. No, you don't have to do Roman numerals. Whatever works for you. Make a specific writing plan.
I love that you say that. And for those that want to know, the resources will be linked below, probably by tomorrow. But I love that you say that, of making it work for you, because some people, their brain works in an outline format.
Yes.
Some people need the graphic organizer,
Yes.
whether it's a Venn diagram or the blocks or however it is.
Right.
And some people, the other thing is the brain dump. Like for me, the brain dump works, because if I have to try and think out an outline, it just doesn't, my brain doesn't work that way. Like I need to do a brain dump and then play around.
And the critical thing about the brain dump is that the analogy I use with my students, it's like juggling. So, okay, I got to keep all the balls in the air, right? But when you put it on paper, you go, okay, that's a good start. But you know what? That first idea, that's just irrelevant. Let's get rid of it. And and then you have 3 new ideas, and then you reorder it, and then you're like, oh, well, now that makes sense. And then you don't have to keep juggling. It's exhausting to juggle your ideas. It's why I tell students to make lists, or to use a calendaring app for their homework or things they have to do, because then you're not juggling all day.
Right.
Right? I mean,
right. And plan it out. And that's the other thing, is like plan it out, like doing the task breakdown of the writing process, of like, you need to do the planning, and then you need to do the writing, and then the editing, like you said. It brings me back to when I wrote on, when I was in law school and I wrote on to the law review. It was like, you have 10 days to turn it in. And so everybody says 3 days planning, 3 days writing, 3 days editing, but the 3 days editing, edit for 2 days, take a break, and then like take a day off, and then look at it with fresh eyes.
And there's more than one way to edit. So I had a college professor give me some fantastic advice. And this is back in the day of typewriters, when you needed this. So, but it's still applicable today. So you edit for different formats, and for different, you're looking for different things. I had one student who just could not keep a consistent verb tense. Couldn't. And so we went through every sentence and checked. So, okay, you tell me it's got to be in past tense, verb, every sentence. But you edit forward for content, and you edit backwards for spelling. And I mean every word. And I know my students say to me, well, I have spell check and I use Grammarly. And I go to and to and to, though and through and thought. And they're like, oh. I'm like, what if you put an extra O on to? You'll see that when you edit backwards. Right. And it takes time. And I, with my resumes, when I'm writing and editing resumes, I do this too. Because, you know, a resume has to be perfect. I mean,
100%.
but I mean, I have pride in my work. So
Yeah.
I practice this every day. And the other thing is you said about editing is so, okay, students go, I can finish it tonight and edit it tonight. And I go, yeah, but if you
Mhm.
don't have if you have a choice, finish it yesterday and edit it today and turn it in tomorrow, because you
Right.
really have to let the material go cold so
Yep.
that it's not in your head anymore. Because if you finish writing and start editing, say you left out a word in a sentence, but it's still in your head, and when you read, you're
Yep.
seeing the word, but your teacher will, put a big red pen mark on there and go, something's missing. And if you
Or even
wait,
explaining, right? Or even explaining, you have in your head all the details, but you didn't put it on
right,
paper because it's in your head. And if you edit
right,
right then and there, your brain is filling in the details.
right. And
Yeah.
so if you wait 24 hours, you catch so many more errors. Okay,
Yeah.
two other things. When you're editing for content, forwards, read it out loud.
Yep.
Don't just read side. I mean, you have to say the sentences, because you'll hear certain sentences and go, oh, that's awkward.
Mhm.
Something's wrong with that.
Yep.
Um, and oh, I was
That's
talking
okay.
and the other thing is gone. Um, yeah. Yeah, it'll come back to me.
Read out loud. Yeah, no, it's fine. And that's so true, is reading it, because as you read it out loud, you'll hear it.
Yes.
And it doesn't sound right. And then also like just writing style, know your audience, right?
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah. And then you
Okay.
made a comment. Yeah.
I
Oh, go ahead.
remember the other thing. So here is my modus operandi when writing. I assume the reader knows nothing about this
Hmm.
subject, and I tell the reader everything. And the student will say to me, but my teacher has read, the Scarlet Letter like 500 times, and the whole class is reading it. And I said, well, how will the teacher know that you understand
Exactly.
all the details of the story and the plot, the theme, the character development, unless you tell the teacher everything? And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, so I have to write like she doesn't know anything. And I'm like, yes, that's the other thing. Assume your reader knows nothing.
Yep. Or write it to a third grader. Like how would you explain it? Well, to an extent,
Yeah.
right?
I was going to say, if you're in high school, maybe write it to a friend.
Right, there you go. That or write it to somebody, write it to somebody that lives in a different country that knows nothing about the topic.
Right. Right, right,
Something like
right. Like,
that is
don't
that,
make assumptions that people will understand what this is about. It doesn't
right.
work that
And
way.
that's always a challenge for me because just the way my brain works, I don't always put in all those details, like I'm more of a big picture person. And
Right.
so I'll say something and think I explained it right, but then go back and like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't really explain that well because it, for me, making that connection was easy, but for other
Right.
people, it's not. It's
It's not.
not as common sense.
Right. And here's a way to think about details in an essay. So I use the analogy of a chocolate chip cookie. And so the cookie is the big ideas. So that's your thesis, that's your paragraphs, right? And the chips is the further breakdown of what you're writing in the paragraph. So the chips explain the cookie.
Ah,
And
okay.
so if I just see this overarching sentence idea of a sentence at the beginning of a paragraph, and the student's like, well, you understand, don't you? And I go, no, actually, I've not read this book. I'm missing a whole lot of details. Like, what about this and this and this? And they're like, I hadn't thought about that, right? Or
Yep.
sometimes when I read resumes and it's not my industry, I did 2 resumes within 6 months. Folks who drive all kinds of trucks and buses. I don't drive a truck or a bus. And I had to ask them, okay, so I see you've listed all of these different vehicles, and one said 4-axle and one had said 2-axle. Is that significant? And they go, absolutely, because there's a 4-axle, version of this bus and a 2-axle. Oh, and then, and then like an 18-wheeler versus a 10-wheeler. And I was like, okay, but you're certified in both. Yes. And so when people write, no matter the format, sometimes, because they're like, well, the person reading this will understand. And I go, okay, spell out that acronym and don't make an assumption,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And because you don't want your teacher having to go, how many axles on that bus? And why do you need that certification? Right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah, and it also, like, even if you're applying for a job, like, let's say you're applying for a job that has nothing to do with driving the trucks and stuff,
yes,
explaining that it's different certification in a 2-axle and a 4-axle, and that it's different, knowledge base, is
right,
just showing that you have an expanded knowledge base in a field
right.
that could help you with other fields,
Yes, a specialty. So now,
Yeah,
you're applying for a job as a supervisor, right? So you're going to supervise the bus depot in Clarksburg. Well, you need to have knowledge of all different kinds of buses. And if you've
right.
driven them all,
It
then
gives
you
you
can
that. Yep,
show that you know all about these buses.
right. And you can supervise better because you've done what they've done.
Yes. Yes,
And that's
yes.
so important. And I
Hmm.
wanna come back on the resume thing. As a business owner who I've hired, I'll tell you, if I see a mistake in a resume, I don't read any farther.
Done. I'm all done. Yeah.
Like, absolutely done. Like, and
Yeah.
and I mean, another I'm not on that note, also, like, if you do a cover letter, which I always appreciate, um, if it's generic, I'm not even looking at it because,
It has to
I
be. Yeah. No, go
Well,
ahead. I
because
mean,
I want to know that you wanna work for my firm and you believe in my firm. I don't want I'm just looking for a job and throwing the spaghetti out and seeing what
right.
comes. At least pretend you've done some research on my firm
Right.
and believe in the process.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Post nasal drip. It just won't
Oh,
stop. And I'm just done with the coughing. Um, a cover letter needs to say, "Hi, I'm applying for this job
right,
at your company." But you have to have looked at the website and done your research such that you can also say, my skills, the following skills, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are a good fit for this position because. So you
right.
have to acknowledge that you're applying to a specific job. And as you say, you want the business owner to not go, yeah, it's just like I want the job. I don't
Right.
really feel like you want it.
Right. Well, it's also like I might not have experience in, I do special education law. Not a lot of attorneys have. I don't have experience. However, my experience in this type of law
Right.
will hopefully lead me to be able to do,
How it translates.
right,
Right.
exactly, exactly.
And
Um,
and
and that,
and I'm finding that some folks in their 20s are not as well versed as they could be in letter formats. And I mean, when I started working, I worked as a receptionist and a secretary and then an admin. And boy, once you work in an admin position, you get good at letter formats. And so I
right,
have to, and they go, but that's now, no, that's how it looks. That's what a letter is. And
yeah,
it doesn't matter whether you're putting it in the mailbox or you're putting it in email, it has to be formatted a specific way.
right.
A letter is
Which
a
just
letter.
Yeah, that just brings me back, like, just triggered for me for IEPs, the transition section.
Hmm.
That's 100%, like, 'cause the transition section is usually garbage. They
Right.
don't make it individualized and stuff, but that's something they can do. We'll look at jobs in the industry they're interested in and learn how to write a cover letter for
Right.
that type of job. Learn
Right.
how to pull the experience they have at that point to be able to
Right.
apply it to that job.
To
And those are the
transition to
skills.
a new industry. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And those are skills that we can put into an IEP in the transition so that it actually means something, the transition
Right.
section.
Well, and my daughter had an IEP when she was young, starting about 3. She got itinerant services for physical skills, just all the way, delayed all the way
Mhm.
around. And those IEPs were very, very specific because walking, talking, handwriting, you know, jumping, 2-foot
Right,
jumping, not a 1-foot. And um and excuse me, I'm so sorry. And the goal was always that she should be able to write legibly. And that's okay. So, you got to show her they gave her the pencil, the grips to put on the pencils. And, how do
Mhm.
you hold your hand on the pencil? Like with IEPs, everything is so very like specific to the minutia.
Right. Or should
Um,
be. They're not
yeah,
always.
yeah. And by the time she started kindergarten, because she was almost 6 when she started kindergarten, and she was 2-foot jumping, yay, and
Mhm.
she was writing legibly, and that was awesome because that was, as you say, the transition. What is it we're trying to get her to do?
Right. And focus on that. And it's, like I'm thinking about like the IEP process and stuff and where the issues are, is that I see so many times goals that are we'll write a topic sentence and 3
Mhm,
supporting details and a
mhm.
conclusion. I'm like, okay, so where is it on the IEP that somebody's going to teach them how to do that?
Right.
How
Who's
is this
teaching that?
Right. How is this child going to learn the writing process? Yes, the end goal is we want them to be able to write that. But in the goal and in the objectives or in the supplementary
Right.
aids, there needs to be the direct instruction of how to use the graphic, organizer, how to
Right.
write
And
an
and it
outline.
should say using graphic organizers
Correct.
because
But
because that's key, honestly. For some students need like a piece of paper with lines and boxes and on
mhm,
it, and that's fine. If you need structure, fantastic. um
right,
and and the IEP goals should say we'll learn to write, okay, by utilizing, and then make it specific. So by
right.
utilizing graphic organizers and the process of writing, and then
Right. And then when that's in the goal. And then when you go back to the supplementary aids and services and you have graphic organizer, in
right.
the clarify location and manner is the teacher will work with the student to develop the graphic organizer before all long writing assignments. Not
Yes.
just kid will use graphic organizer. The chat like it's that's where a lot of IEPs are lacking is that you're expecting a child to do something, but where's the responsibility of teaching the child how to do it?
Well, and it's not, and it's the graphic organizers, but it also with, and this is really important, and I say this again and again with each new student who I work with on writing. You must do two things before you start writing the essay. You must brain dump and create some kind of outline, pre-writing plan, let's call it whatever, doesn't scare you. Format is undetermined. You must write your thesis statement before, based on what you did the outline, before you start writing anything.
Right.
So a topic sentence so outlining a topic sentence first, step 1. Step 2, we write.
Right.
You Yeah.
But your brain dump can be before the thesis, right?
Oh, you have to do it first, brain dump, and then you're
Got
gonna,
it.
you know,
Right.
because the way things come out of our heads isn't organized. That's the
Yep.
idea of a brain dump. Get it out of your head. And then once you see it on the screen and you go, okay, that's a good start.
Right.
But now I'm going to remove a few things and reorder it and then add some things.
Right. I know for me, like if I just start writing, I'll get through something and then I'll be like, oh, wait, damn, I meant to do this and I meant to do that. Where had I organized first, I
Right.
wouldn't now have to go back and rewrite the whole thing because
Right.
I left off some key points of that needed to be in there.
Right. And so here's another analogy I share with my students. So what I say to them is your essay, baseball analogy, your essay without a thesis statement, and it's out of the park.
Right.
No framework.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you create the outline, you write your thesis statement, your topic sentence, and now that ball is going to be caught by the outfielder before it hits the stands because it has a framework
Right.
around it. And it keeps you from going out to left field.
Right. And that's what we learned in, well, Toastmasters also, but in law school and writing and stuff. It's like, first you want to tell everybody where you're going, then you're going to get there, and then you're going to tell everybody where they've been. So your introduction, your body, your conclusion.
Right. Thesis statement says, this is what I'm going to tell you about.
Yep.
Closing statement says, this is what I just told you about.
Yep.
Very
Exactly.
important, because an essay is nicely wrapped up, put a bow on it when your closing statement says, look, I just told you about these things.
Right.
And wasn't it awesome? And you go, oh no, you're right. You broke the paragraphs down nicely. You know, sub ideas are good. The cookie ideas were great. The chip sentences were awesome. And now yes, I get it. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Less red pen.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're spoon feeding it, you know, like you're, and that's the idea, is that it also helps you, or at least I know it helps me to organize. If I have my, like, you know, my strong introductory paragraph, and then I know that's going to have to turn in my conclusion to make sure that I have that way of organizing.
And I practice what I preach, because I've written a children's book called The Magical Adventures of Carly and Her Dragon. I know we're going to get to it, but
I know I want to hear about that.
Yeah. And I get ideas when I'm doing something innocuous, when I'm exercising or doing the dishes. This idea will go dink, and you're like, oh my God, I have to write this down. Yep. And I had this idea, but my kids were young and I didn't have time. But I picked out a notebook. My husband brought me back a fancy notebook from a science thing. And I was like, ooh, well, that'll be something, you know. And every time I had a thought, I wrote it in my notebook. And then I kept putting down ideas. And about 8-10 years later, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And then I'm like, wow, I sure thought about this a lot. It's like I did a 10-year brain dump. And so I then started to, you know, once I was like, okay, well, there's a dragon and a girl and they go on adventures, but how does that happen? Where do they go? Family members. And the more questions I had, the more I fleshed it out. And because I had done so much upfront work, within like 2 weeks, it was like fully outlined.
Wow.
And just like you can't write a cohesive paper really without some form of outline. And literally I wrote this thing in like 2 or 3 months, because it was so it'd been in my head for so long, and I really like, it's like they had come to feel like friends.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, you know, so I practice and I practice what I preach. Anything I tell a student to do, I've done.
Yeah. Which is
with
important.
Test prep, I tell them they have to learn vocabulary. Okay. But you're not going to memorize, because you memorize, take the test and forget. You're going to learn, you're going to break words down there by their prefix, roots, and suffix. So if you're not sure what a word means, but you see aqua in a word, you're like, that's something to do with water. Okay. So let's learn the words, but let's learn in parts. So, and I did this when I took the GRE. I mean, I will never tell a student to do something that I myself haven't done.
Right. And if you know the parts of the words, right, I was going to say, and if you know the parts of the words, if you come across a word that you don't know, you know enough that you can fake it or figure it out, right?
And if you like I think of words as like a flip book. Like, okay, I have a root with a positive prefix. Flip, now it's a negative prefix. Dependent, positive. Independent. Sorry. No, I got that wrong. Sorry, I said that wrong. Dependent. I'm dependent on you for too many things. Independent. Flip. Now it's positive. And in is not.
Exactly.
So, you know, it really, and they're like, oh, so no memorizing. I was like, yeah, but you got to create flashcards and you have to go through the deck every day. And they're like, okay, but I'm not memorizing. No. You're going to write on that card what that word means to you. Don't write down a 10-word dictionary definition. You won't remember that beyond the test.
Right.
What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
It could be an image. It could be when I think of undulate, I think of a sidewinder snake going down a sand dune. I don't need a definition. I have an image in my head. And they're like, oh, this is not that hard. Yes, exactly. It doesn't have to be hard.
Well, because you're taking it and teaching them the way they need to learn it.
Yes. Like
And that's the,
long-term learn.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And it's a
Yeah.
30-page list of
Wow.
prefix, suffix, and roots. Because I've got like 5 sources, and one day I just typed them all up. I was like, why am I looking in 5 different places for the same list?
Yeah. But it makes sense because then it opens up the entire world for you, knowing
Yes.
the basics
Yes.
of that stuff.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
your book, and I know we'll I'm assuming your book you can get on Amazon or
Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
okay. We'll put the links
a
in
number of
the
other places. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll make sure we find the links and put them in there also.
Yeah.
I love hearing about the books. I have a book in my head, and it's so funny because I like know it, and I like I'm hearing all these little pointers from people that have written books of like, oh, do this or do that, and I'm like, I just need to just sit down and do it. At least like keep the notebook like you do. Like right now, I don't have time. I'm running a law firm. I'm a lawyer, and I have 2 neurodiverse
Dedicate
children.
a notebook and keep
Yep.
it handy, and
I
just
love
keep
that.
writing your thoughts down. And one of these days, you're going to go, oh, look, it's thought out.
Yeah. I love that idea. I'm gonna go, and I know I have tons of notebooks everywhere, so I'm gonna go find one and
Exactly.
make it
And then
that.
just write
Yeah.
on the cover, book idea.
Yeah. No, I love that idea. And it's so important. Like, even, I love that you say when ideas pop in your head when you're exercising or doing, whatever, like stress-free IEP. That's what happened to me. I was out walking one day and it just popped in my head and I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And so it's a registered trademark now because I thought it was like, it just, right. It just works.
Yeah.
And
I solve all kinds of problems when I'm working out. Because there's something, how do I organize? How do I do this? And then when I'm just like, it's working out is mindless, listening to music, whatever. And then it'll just pop in my head. Oh, that's how I can fix it. Because I got out of my own way.
Right.
Is really.
Stop thinking about it. Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
So true. We block ourselves.
Isn't it?
So before we wrap up, are there any important pointers that parents should know? Like that you have for parents to help them help their children with the writing process?
Yes. Patience first, because, I've lived it. My daughter is challenged by math. 3rd grade, she had a tutor, and then I got it. I've always been the tutor, but I finally got it. The tools that will be helpful if a student has had testing done. There are great tools listed in, different sections in the testing reports, for school, home, tutor use, right? But things like with time management and organization challenges is like graphic organizers. If a student will use a paper planner, fine. If not, get them a calendaring app, a note-taking app, a to-do app. There are all these apps out there. They don't like paper, fine. They need to sit down and make a plan on Friday for how they're gonna plan their weekend. On Sunday, they need to sit down and anticipate what's coming for the week, because students know where they are in the unit. And it's and if the parents need to involve themselves, then it becomes a casual conversation. And maybe if the student won't write it down, maybe the parent is. Post it on the fridge. Yeah. Everybody's going to see it there. Who doesn't need a snack sometimes?
Right. I love that.
I have a PowerPoint presentation that I want to share. Keynote that I want to share some tools for how parents can help when students are outlining. Have some graphic organizers handy, and then you could just say pop it on the printer and make another copy of it. Graphic organizers with all the different boxes and sections are a great way to think about for a student to break down their ideas.
It's great for a brain dump too.
Patience tops the list.
Yep, definitely.
And I know
we're going to have the links. Yeah, I was going to say we're going to have the links to your the information that you're referencing
Yes.
in the show notes below.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so much like the writing process. You don't think about it, as adults and
Yes.
stuff, but like you really need to be taught the writing process.
And we weren't taught the way our kids are being taught,
Mhm.
because my kids and my students and your kids too are they're not just told to write a paper. That's what I was told, because
Yeah,
I went to MCPS. I graduated from Woodward. I've Potomac, Rockville. I've lived all over the county and went to Maryland. And so I know. But now the teachers are like, okay, so the first part of this writing assignment is brainstorm your idea, pick a book, right? Read
right.
the first half and then write the thesis statement, okay? And then, it's like, and then the graphic organizers are built into the assignment. So
Right.
students are being taught in a very different way than you and I were taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's uh
And it's
it's
still
better.
it's better, but it's
But
still cookie cutter. Everybody's being taught the same way,
sure,
right?
because not every student functions the same way. Like
Yeah.
maybe this graphic, or because I've heard students with ADHD and autism learning challenges say, "Well, it's just too much. It's too busy. I can't wrap my head around it. I would rather just do it on a piece of paper or just type it on
Mm,
in a Google Doc."
right.
And maybe those students have accommodations where they can get some flexibility, but some students are just,
Exactly.
it's too much.
Right. And that's 100% in the IEP where it comes down to the accommodations or the supplementary aids of like breaking it down and what works for this child so that it's not because
Right.
I know for me, if I'm too overwhelmed, I'm done. I'm not even doing any of it because I just can't like my brain can't function to get to like to even start. Like it's analysis paralysis, like I
And if
can't
you
even function
can't
to get to
start,
start. Yeah.
you can't work on it, you can't complete it, and you can't turn it in. But that's also when you go to the teacher and you say, look, I have these great ideas, but this format doesn't work for me. Can I create it in a Google Doc and share it with you? And then
Exactly.
let the teacher see if the teacher's, IEP 504, no IEP 504, maybe you're just, you know, not a neurodivergent student. But then let the teacher go, okay, so you're saying you want to do this, but you're feeling challenged by the format of doing it.
Yep.
Maybe the teacher will accommodate you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because if you don't
That's
ask, you'll
awesome.
never know.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and that's the other thing. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of your wisdom. This has been so awesome, and now I'm motivated again to start the book stuff. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all your wisdom with our listeners.
If I can be helpful to you in that capacity, I would love to.
Ooh, I will definitely reach out. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Yeah, no, this was fun. I liked it.
Great. And thank you all for joining us on this episode of Stress-Free IEP. We hope today's conversation gave you new tools, insights, or just a little more peace of mind as you support your neurodivergent child. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone in your village. Next week, we will be having episode 129 with Roger Haney, Building Spectrum Fudge and a Future for All Abilities. You can always learn more and connect with me at schefterlaw.com or follow along on social media. Until next time, remember, you do not have to do it all alone.